Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael David Fox. I am director of the Center for Eurasian, Russian, East European Studies here in the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown. And I would like to say that Russia Brief is moderated and organized by Jill Doherty, who is an adjunct professor here at CERES. She is formerly at CNN, as she worked there as White House correspondent, as State Department correspondent, and Moscow bureau chief. We're grateful to the Carnegie Corporation of New York for supporting this programming. And I am delighted to welcome Gulsanna Mamediieva here, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Jill.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. And welcome to the Russia Brief. That's our regular discussion of Russia and the region. And as Michael said, I'm Jill Doherty, still Jill Doherty, and very glad that you can join us today. You know, I know that a lot of our Russia Brief regulars follow events in the region very closely, and I'm sure that a lot of you are attending or participating in discussions and events connected with really a terrible anniversary, 2 years anniversary of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And several of our previous Russia briefs have focused on Ukraine, most often on military or geopolitical aspects. But today we're going to examine the extraordinary manner in which Ukraine is using its prowess in the digital realm, both militarily and also in a civilian sense. I personally have to say I became aware of this right here in Washington, D.C., when a Ukrainian friend suggested I download an app on my phone. And she said, it's called Air Alarm Ukraine. And you can actually put in a Ukrainian city, and it tells you real time whether you should run to a shelter or whether it's all clear. And that to me was a really sobering reminder of what's happening every minute in Ukraine. Now, the conversation will be much broader than that, but the perfect person to talk about it is Gulsanna Mamediieva. And she's directly involved in fostering Ukraine's digital sovereignty. She's currently a tech and public policy fellow at the McCourt School for Public Policy at Georgetown. And she's also CEO at Digitality, Government Tech Center of Excellence, which is a Brussels-based nonprofit aimed at enhancing digital transformation in the public sector. And previously, she was Director General for European and NATO integration at Ukraine's Ministry of Digital Transformation, which is really kind of where a lot of this is centered. And finally, I mean, she has a very impressive bio, I must say. But importantly, for the past 2 years, she's been working on international technical assistance to support Ukraine's digital resistance to Russia's invasion. So after all of that, welcome, Gulsanna. Really glad you're here.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Michael, for having me here.
Right. Well, I'm going to give a little housekeeping. Gulsanna and I are going to talk for about 25 minutes, and then we're going to open it to questions from the audience. So please get your questions ready, and you will put those in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So beginning, Gulsanna, this is, I know, a really broad subject. So I kind of wanted to begin at the beginning. I was aware, and I'm sure a lot of people on this Zoom are aware, that Ukraine has a very well-developed IT sector. But when did it actually begin introducing this digital transformation across the country?
I think it's all started back with the Revolution of Dignity in 2014, when many young people came, new energy came into government, and we were starting rethinking what we actually want to build. Yes, what kind of Ukraine we are building. It was a lot of European aspiration, European integration, NATO integration, but it's also, we are in the stage where we're thinking and reimagining government in digital era, how to make government more transparent, more, there's a lot of anti-corruption effect in this efforts in digital transformation of the government. And obviously, there's a lot of tech talent in Ukraine that we can leverage on. So we were lucky to start maybe later than other countries, because then we were able to leverage on lessons learned, on the technology, on already available GovTech solutions, and learn from them and improve them. So we started in 2014, but the real center in the government policy and public policy in Ukraine digital transformation took was when President Zelensky came to the office. He was campaigning with a state and a smartphone vision. He announced actually that he's waiting for the presidency with holding smartphone in his hand, and promised people to build convenient, invisible, and human-centered state, with the philosophy that government in digital era shouldn't be different in providing their digital services on different level than it's doing the Uber doing this or Airbnb. So there is an era of the high rising expectations of users and citizens, and government should keep up. This is also very much connected to the trust, because the more effective government is, the better it's serving its citizens. The more trust and respected citizens feel, they more socially active, and it's how it's actually working in democracy, what we believe in. There's a lot of research supporting this, that efficiency of the government really much connected to the trust and social activism of citizens. So we started, we put it in the center of our policy when President Zelensky became a president in 2019, and the ministry was created from scratch with many young people. Half of the ministry come without any policy, this previous background in government, many from business, marketing, and other spheres. And we were lucky to have this all necessary mandates and capacities and capabilities to build something new. And we started to ask what government should look like in digital era, what we want it to be. And we spent maybe half of a year of reimagining the digital brand of the country. Then we come up with DIA, which is a government brand, state brand of Ukraine, and it's translated, it's an acronym. DIA means from Ukrainian action, but it's also an acronym. Держава і я.
Acronym, yeah.
Acronym, state and me, meaning that we reimagine how citizen and business interact with government. We did a lot of effort in, make this brand recognizable and understand what we are building. And the year after ministry was created, we introduced DIA itself. It's a government state application with all services, not all with digital services and digital documents available online.
Yeah, actually, I want to talk about that because I know you have a small video that we'd like to watch. And just for the people who are on this call, in English, it's spelled DIIA.
Yeah.
And then of course in Ukrainian, it's, DIA. But I think it's really interesting. So let me just pull this down. Are you able to share your screen, Gulsanna, and we could take a peek at that?
Yeah, I am.
We'll try. We'll see if we're digitally capable of doing this. And there it is. What do you know? Okay.
Work, okay.
What is DIA? DIA is the state in smartphone. It is a useful tool that cares about millions of Ukrainians on a daily basis via DIA app. Ukraine is the first country in the world that allows its citizens to use digital passports as an alternative to physical ones, using which you can open a bank account in one click and travel around the country without originals. Your digital documents and variety of public services are available in one application, from driver's license to birth certificate, from paying taxes to sharing your car. Even nationwide polls are a direct expression of e-democracy, anytime, any place. No paperwork, no stress, no lines, no bureaucracy. State in a smartphone works 24/7. 365 days per year. Convenient, invisible, human-centered. This is what DIA truly is.
Okay. That really is fascinating because I'm thinking we could, of course, use a lot of this in the United States. That's my humble opinion. But it reminds me actually of Estonia, where they have, something. I noticed that you were associated with Estonia at one point, I think, academically. But can you tell me, the immediate image that I had was in a war-torn situation. One of the most challenging things sometimes is all of a sudden you are running from your house and you don't have papers. You didn't collect your papers or your passport, and you don't have proof of anything. And this is really, really fascinating to think that you could upload all of it onto this site, and then you'd have that, as you said, digitally, the passport, et cetera. Can you tell me, like in your life, or why was it important to develop this particularly?
I would say, like we all have, the whole world have experience with COVID. So compare the level of crisis. Now I think about the COVID as something that allowed us to test our capabilities before the full-scale invasion. I don't know, like maybe I can say that we were lucky to have COVID before the full-scale invasion because we built this, and we had DIA before, we launched it just before COVID. Because then we tested and built the necessary capacity of the state to operate in high crisis. Yeah, when Ukraine didn't stop to work as a government in providing services and assistance even for a second when full-scale invasion started. It's exactly when citizens need government more than ever. Yeah, they evacuating, they need to understand how logistic is working, how they can access some truthful and verifiable information from the government when Russia is bombing TV towers and cutting off the internet in occupied territories, trying to, limiting citizens' access, Ukrainian access to the information from the government. People need assistance to understand, to register themselves as internally or externally displaced people. They need to apply for assistance available, different type of assistance. We have, for example, programs for family with many children, 3+, those who are elderly, those who lost their jobs, the entrepreneurs in hostile regions, and so on. So it's a lot of things. When the full-scale invasion started, we need to react very quickly. And having digital infrastructure in place allowed us to do this. I can imagine to address this kind of issues that we were facing without DIA. That, for example, speaking literally, Russia started to bomb cities. People went to the shelter. There's no internet, no connect. There is no. There is internet, but no connection, like TV channels. So we put in DIA TV, radio, and DIA TV. So citizens can have access to the news from the government. What is going on? What is the plan? Like the communication from the parliament, from the president, and so on. Then it's not available in DIA, but another tool, air alarm application that you told about. Yeah, so we don't have a very you don't have the signals in all over your country when Russia is attacking missiles. So you want to warn people it's a time to go to shelter. How you do this? Everyone have a phone, so you do it through the phone. So we were able to launch this application actually that is notifying citizens that, and it's very critical actually, to people in the West and the East understand even the directions of the rockets and missiles, so they can answer do they have time or do they have to run right away because their exactly city is under attack. Then people were displacing from their hostile regions, and they need assistance and money to do this. And we were so they displaced the evacuated city, and they apply for the for the evacuation assistance, we are able to check the geolocation, confirm that person is on the occupied territory, and right away install the necessary assistance. And it was installed like in one day. We received 1 million application in the first days, and we were able to process all of them very fast. It's I'm seeing very fast. It's hours. It's not even days. When people like were evacuated, eventually they need to register as internally displaced people to have access to all other infrastructure, like register the new place of living, and they also can do this in their phone. So you can pay taxes online, you can submit declaration, you can sell a car, you can actually do custom clearance now a car if you drive. It's like more specific Ukrainian. We submit. We drive a lot of cars to the front. Just people donate cars, and we buy a lot of cars in Ukraine, and you can do custom clearance online. So pay custom taxes. Basically, every central and all important services are available online, and not just online, they're available in your phone, because we don't believe anymore in the web. We do have philosophy mobile first. The old data show like people are mostly, what do you have with you all the time? You have your smartphone. Yes, it's not very convenient to do things in the web anymore. So we have to.
Gulsanna, I just want to pick up on that. So you just said you don't believe in the web anymore, right? Is that what you're saying? I mean,
we do have mobile first principle. It's meaning that everything that you could put in mobile, you do this in mobile. Of course, there is a lot of complicated services, for example, in construction sphere. Yes, you cannot do this. So it's more for business. We do this in the web, in the portal, but most of the services for citizens are available in the smartphone.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Michael, feel free to jump in if you have questions.
Well, I do have one actually,
all right,
because you mentioned anti-corruption,
yeah.
which I'd be interested in hearing more about that, but I assume it's because people do things through the phone rather than in person where you could take bribes and so forth. But what about, you must have some pretty serious security on these apps to prevent people from hacking in. So I'd be interested in, because that could be a form of corruption, right? If they get into the web, into the app.
Okay, maybe if I may speak about, so security, of course, is the first. And I think having this infrastructure during the war, and there's no evidence, and it's never been attacked. Like Russians, we can definitely be sure that Russians tried a lot of times to attack and destroy the systems, but they were not successful. And this is the best proof that it's as much secure as possible. There is no 100 security in the world, but they proved really tested in the most possible imaginable condition to be secure, because it's secure by design. How it's worked, basically, DIA doesn't store my application, my phone doesn't store any digital documents. It's pure DIA reflect the information that is already in government registries. They all are decentralized. So there's a register of driver license, there's a register of passports, there's a register of vehicle certificate, and it's what DIA does. DIA send a request and reflect the information from the register in your phone. So there's no place where all information is gathered. It's all decentralized, and it's also only reflected in your phone. And there's like token that's working for 3 seconds, meaning that you cannot stall it, you cannot copy it. You can share your digital documents with a QR code or with a QR code, but this technology require you to send you notification, are you okay to share your digital document, and you press okay. So it's really consent based. And we do make DIA in the middle of the war open source, meaning that we open the source code, so all other countries will be able to leverage it and use it to build their own products like DIA-like systems. This is also very good proof of the security. If you're not confident in security of your product, you would not open the code while you're in the war and you have such an advisory enemy as a Russia. So this is a part about security of the system. The part about anti-corruption, of course, digitalization play a great role in anti-corruption effort. And Ukraine, maybe it's kind of personal thing, but I may say that all the conversation about level of corruption in Ukraine does not consider and rely on the last 5 years developments. We did a lot of things we do in Ukraine. The construction sphere is totally digitalized. You receive permission on the construction automatically. There's no human involved in the process. Once you submit all the documentation in a machine readable way, and it's all there, so the system gives you permission. Civil servants submit declarations online. For example, I submitted like all the years declaration, and it's available publicly. We have a register of the real estate property. So in Ukraine, you can check every property, every building to whom it belongs, and not just company, but beneficial owner. The parliament is working very open. You can see all the procedures. So there's, and Ukraine is second in Europe in the amount of open data, meaning that we show it's in the like, it's very important. We are in the middle of the war, which is war. Like many governments and countries would take it as justification to go close many things, but Ukraine continue to be very open, and government continues to be open. So all this conversation about the level of corruption in Ukraine that currently taking place, they're not really understanding the rapid digital transformation that Ukraine did. And it's important, maybe because Ukraine were number one country in terms of the speed of digital transformation. We were, again, lucky, but I will repeat, to rely on existing expertise. We took some lessons from Estonia, we improved them, and Estonia now actually learning back from Ukraine. They building their mobile application based on DIA, open source or public code, which we shared with them. So it's great also example how governments can cooperate. We took Estonian solution, X-Road, based on this, build Ukrainian Trembita, which is the system of interoperability between registers when they securely exchange data between register. On top of it, we build DIA, and now Estonia is taking back and learning from DIA. So coming back to anti-corruption effect, we did a calculation of joint anti-corruption economic effect in 2022, a year, the whole year effect. It was $1.4 billion. The general, meaning that how many human power, how many automatization save, and the whole anti-corruption effect, because it's killing low-level corruption. Yeah, you don't need to give a bribe to someone to speed up your process, because it's all here. It's cheaper, it's more convenient. You submit your taxes in 2 clicks, basically. So there is no space, and computer doesn't take a bribe.
Okay, I have my eye on the clock. So what I wanted to do, I think, Gulsanna, you have one more very short video, a minute video. I haven't seen this one, so I guess you'll have to walk us through it. And are you able to share screen again, and we'll take a peek at that?
Yeah, just a moment. This one is about how we used actually existing infrastructure in wartime.
As a result of the war, almost 12 million Ukrainians fled their homes. More than 8 million went abroad. For them, documents were translated into English in DIA. It takes a minute for Ukrainians to apply for an IDP status certificate in DIA. Ukrainians can also submit an application for IDP assistance in DIA app as well. Ukrainian government sending payments to help our people every month. The Russian military have destroyed tens of thousands of homes of civil people. Damaged property feature was created to track damages as accurately as possible. Ukrainians are able to report complete or partial damage to their private homes and residential properties. When Ukrainians had to be evacuated from hotspots, they had left behind everything they had earned throughout their lives. We updated services on e-aid. There is a one-time financial assistance from the government to evacuated people. On the first day of this feature, we have received 1 million applications. Due to full-scale war, a lot of people lost their jobs in a moment. In order to support them, Unemployment Benefits Service was launched in DIA. Citizens can apply for receiving unemployment status and financial support from the state, depending on previous income and experience. When the Russian army attacked Ukraine, it destroyed a number of TV towers. In order to provide Ukrainians with uninterrupted access to information, DIA TV and DIA Radio were created in the DIA app. Using this feature, the population follows all the news and even have watched Eurovision recently. The state has supported Ukrainians. Now Ukrainians are able to support the state in turn and invest in victory by purchasing military bonds in DIA. They are named after temporarily occupied Ukrainian cities.
Another fascinating video. Wow. I'm thinking we're getting some questions, and again, that's in the Q&A function. Maybe I'll go to a couple of those, and we can always come back to the discussion, okay? Let's see. In fact, there's one specifically from Tim McQuillan, specifically about DIA. So can you share some more details about how Ukraine prioritized DIA's first document and services offerings when it launched? What kind of research, what kind of questions were asked? Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. It's a fascinating question, which I like the story more. So very much. So it's we started, the first document that we introduced was driver license, because we were thinking how to, cover the much broader audience as possible. Yes, and on what audience you rely. So, it definitely should be young people because they are more kind of tend to adopt new solutions, and we were thinking about use cases when young people using digital documents very often, like the most of the case. Maybe you have a guess.
Getting married?
No, really.
Oh, buying something.
Buying alcohol, like they need to verify. Okay. Yeah. So we discovered that it's the widest, like very good use case when students or like the young people, they need to verify their age when they buy alcohol, and it's usually it's very often situation when they forgot and their passports and document. So we tried to push into this case because if that would adopted in this case widely by young people, then it will help us to gain more and more people, in adopting. You make some assumptions about society and think how to help them adopt these new solutions. It's really important thing to think about. And there was a fascinating case when one grocery network was really cooperative with the government and willing to implement into their network, like accepting digital documents and verifying the age via digital documents. And one was more reluctant and conservative. Their legal team were afraid about the consequences, not the proper legislation, like on the high level, there's different kind of different interpretation maybe. And then the marketing actually played a great role because this network, all young people who are able to buy alcohol with a digital document and smartphone, they went to the shop number one, yes, the grocery store which accept the digital document. And then it forced all other shop markets and grocery stores to move to accepting digital documents. And then it's like kind of creating a culture. Then the next case was with the driver license, with drivers, because the first document was a driver license. It's in Ukraine, you can prove your age with a driver license, and I believe here in US as well. So the next case was the driver license, digital driver license. When you stop by police, you have to have your driver license with you. And the case, it's kind of second very wide case. So we were working with the police and drivers to actually convince them and get them used to use digital document to present to police. And there was also not very, there was problems with acceptance, but eventually communication worked. Yeah, so that was the first
Oh,
cases.
interesting. There are a couple of questions that take us from that. One is from Kenneth Dillon. Are Ukraine's industries digitizing the entire economy? And then one from Lawrence Quarles. Is this open to international business? So if you can take both of those.
Okay, so digitizing the entire, it sounds very broad question. I'm not sure if I'm understanding it right. Let me put that way, that technology now play very important role in Ukraine, starting from the military. Yeah, so we understand that it's Ukraine now is a polygon, and many tech companies come to Ukraine to test their solutions, and we really encourage them, and we really encourage the digitalization and military tech development in Ukraine itself. So we need the producers of the new technologies and emerging technologies in Ukraine. We need something innovative to make a breakthrough. Because again, it's the biggest war in the technological time, yes, in digital era, if you think about this. So the role of the technology is enormous, and is also vital to support Ukrainian economy, because the big part of Ukrainian, we have a goal to make GDP, like 10% of Ukrainian GDP come from IT sector. It was, when we started, like around 5%, and we created a lot of incentives like special tax regime, special legal regime, labor regulation for specifically IT companies to make them grow and to support them. And it's the only one sector that showed the growth even during the wartime. People continue to deliver when there's no internet or no energy, so they find the way how to overcome these kind of obstacles, and it's just showing tremendous resilience of Ukrainian business. And they also very much participate and give us feedback and advise Ukrainian government on digitalization. So there's a strong sector, and I feel it we working honestly like very differently how US is working with the tech, because it's more like there's a big companies, it's a more cautious, less cooperation. If I may say, in Ukraine, what we did, we opened the door for the business. They come to the board, we hear their opinion and advice, because they also have, interest in making Ukraine modern, innovative country, and they provide really valuable advices. It's a government role to hear them. Yes, so the government did not used to work with technology so well as industry, don't know the methodology, all the new things, so we got to learn from them. And another question is, yeah, Joe, I hear.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so open to international business. As wide as possible. Yeah, so Ukraine is really inviting international business come and test and invest in Ukraine, and we offer all the support that possibly imagine, especially in military tech, but also rebuilding and reconstruction, social sphere, economy. We need now the international presence more than ever, and I think it's also beneficial for international business to go into Ukraine now, because it's the more risk, the better win. Yeah, I would say the business can really leverage and earn I don't want to speak in terms of money, because there's a lot of great like social part in this in supporting Ukraine, but it's also great advantage to it's risky, but then this risk is is earning this. And yeah, so this is, we also work with businesses, we integrate DIA with businesses, for example, like small hotels or big hotels in Ukraine. They have to legally, they have to store digital document copy. So we integrate them into the system so they have access with, of course, consent and notification to the user that this hotel is requesting to store your digital, like do you check in, do you want to share your digital document? And this is actually digitizing their work. And another great case, I think, that when we launched opportunity to open bank account online in the first day, not the first day, but very early, in one day, 80,000 new bank accounts were opened just because it was very convenient. So it's also like industry is leveraging from this infrastructure.
You know, I have a question, and I am not technically a astute person, so forgive me, but there's been a lot of attention paid to Elon Musk and Starlink. Now, I know Starlink is internet, provides satellite so that you can have access to the internet.
Yeah.
You were talking about getting away, in a sense, from the internet and going really to a phone-based system of accessing information that I presume is in the cloud. But does Elon Musk's Starlink have anything to do with how DIA is used or disseminated?
It's kind of so if speak technological, let me like DIA is somewhere like up. Yes, it's in technology stack, and Starlink is lower down. It's like, so we have internet, and we have fiber internet, and we have satellite internet, access. So it's a absolutely great technology that helped Ukraine, especially in the beginning, to provide internet access in occupied territories, in critical infrastructure that need the internet. So we do have a lot of Starlink terminals in Ukraine. I think close to 40,000 now, and we need more. Thanks to partners, we buy them. There was also a donation in the beginning, and Elon Musk actually did a lot of things to support Ukraine in the beginning. The technology itself, satellite connections, is a technology of future. The question is why we don't have an open market on this, quite open market like other players. And this is something I think that bring us to question digital sovereignty, because we shouldn't probably allow the situation when business, however, like without any assessment, decide the questions whether to stop military operation over Crimea or not. So
Right.
we definitely don't want to. The world is kind of in the wrong place with this, and we have to take lessons from this. And I think partially it lies in the opening and making a market around this technology.
Because I did note just a few days ago, there was a report about Russian forces in the occupied territories having some type of access to Starlink. But perhaps that's another question. But it is true that, you know, controlling this and making it absolutely safe is the key to everything. Because I know, you know, I've talked with Americans when I came back from Estonia, and I described what they had. And several Americans said, that's great, but if it's not secure, they wouldn't be interested. But anyway.
Yeah, and the same is with data storage. So Ukraine, like, imagine if you have a digital government, very sophisticated, and then your data centers are bombed.
And your what? I'm sorry?
And data centers are bombed. So this is what happened in Ukraine.
Oh,
So
data centers. Yeah, data centers
data
are bombed.
centers,
Yes.
the storage and the physical location of the data, the servers. So like you collapse, and you have to think about where there is such a concept as data embassies that were, again, Estonia were first trying this. Now Ukraine is also, all our sensitive data is abroad in the cloud. So we use cloud very much. And I remember times when we were proposing this legislation in Ukraine and Parliament was kind of opposing to this, and there was questions about national security, sovereignty, how we can think about like this data localization trend. But when the real emergency came, we all were agreed that we need to relocate data abroad to the cloud.
Yeah.
And it was very wise solution because data, the biggest news data center that we had in Kyiv Oblast was shut in March 2022, like several weeks after the full-scale invasion started. Thanks God, till that time we already relocated and had the backups in the cloud. But that led us to the questions: what really digital sovereignty is in this environment, like having opportunity to store everything on your territory, or having opportunity to rely on partners, cooperate. Then what is how we regulate these partners? Yes, because it's Amazon, it's Microsoft that helping now a lot because of the goodwill. And we have examples where there's might be no goodwill.
Yeah, well, let's jump into that a little bit more, because I know you were so involved with, integration, digital integration with Europe. And so I think you're all over that subject. What are the, the challenges? What are the perhaps downsides to that?
Yeah, you mean the European integration, or
Or with others. I mean, why it almost answers itself, but I want to understand why you think about this in a deeper way. Why is integration with Europe so important at this point?
Of course, like it's a very strategic direction of Ukraine, political. This is aspiration that we paid a lot of very high price starting from 2014. But I honestly believe that Europe have so much to learn from Ukraine as well. It's not one-side cooperation. Ukraine is very big, innovative, modern, talent country. The things that we are doing in government, and I can say it openly, like we share with European Union. Now they only now thinking about the digital ID wallet, and they take like looking in Ukraine and be super open to share and help others to learn, because we were learning from others, and this is how we like the democracy works. Yes. So there's a lot of things that Ukraine can bring to European table, but also, make Europe think a little bit kind of broader. For example, like let's take GDPR. Everyone likes GDPR here, especially in US. I hear like that it's such a standard Brussels effect, at least like in my circle, human rights oriented. But GDPR itself was never it was not created with something that allows any deviation and flexibility when situation like in Ukraine can come, like full-scale invasion or pandemic. There was a lot of problems when Europe tried to launch the tracing application, help people to, when you, for example, were in contact with someone who infected COVID, the government send you a notification that, and it's actually enabled by the special technology, GPS, like very simply saying. So it's some like tracing technology is there. So there was a lot of concerns of privacy invasion, but there's a way to do it securely and in decentralized way, in the privacy-oriented way. However, GDPR didn't envisage the opportunity to roll this kind of a technology, or at least it was very difficult. I'm not super expert on the GDPR, but I have been working on it, like thinking how we need to implement. Of course, we would need to implement. And I can say if we did implement GDPR before full-scale invasion, many things we would probably derogate from GDPR. So there's not much. What I'm trying to say that European digital framework is not wide and broad enough for innovation. In some cases, innovation in emergency. This Europe don't think in emergency condition. However, it's a time, kind of a wake up and understand what is next door. And I think this is the lessons that Ukraine is learning and building is very important for Europe.
You know, this reminds me in kind of a broader sense of what happened. You know, my field is really kind of Russia and the region. And I remember years ago when, you know, Russians and people in the entire former Soviet Union would wait literally for years to have a telephone installed. Then cell phones come in. And there's a gigantic leap. You don't need a hard line. And the same thing happened in the United States. But it was just so obvious that, you know, if you never had a phone and then all of a sudden you have a cell phone, you had access to almost everything. It was revolutionary. And I think really revolutionary in a lot of countries. I've been to other countries. Actually, in Asia, the same thing happened. You know, no hard infrastructure, and then all of a sudden you have everything digital. So if you could you kind of talk about that a little bit. It really strikes me that what Ukraine is doing, as you started to talk at the beginning of this hour, you were saying, you know, Ukraine was looking at what kind of a country do we want to have in the digital age, you know? And it's really a philosophical question. Philosophical, it's business, it's sociological, et cetera. But I'd love kind of your broader thoughts about the significance of this.
Oh, I really like this topic. I started to teach as a young professor, like course in governing in digital age in McCourt, and we speak about this a lot. Because what we have built, what I think, everything that we know about the government is pretty much about the paper enabled. Yes, paper allowed to transfer, codify all the procedures, rules, standardization, having like over time, over territory. And we were never thinking in a bit and bytes. And now it's a time when we're building digital public infrastructure. We're building registers, and we're doing this for 40, 50 years. It's very, very new. We are in very beginning of the digital government. And it's not only service delivery, it's also how government is operating, the way how we are working, the way how decisions are made, the way how government is quickly receiving feedback from citizens. If before the policy, I'm like, you implement policy and you wait for 3 years for a result, now it could be half of a day. When you roll the website, you see the problems, you change design, you improve. You constantly, the government should learn how to improve. So there is we don't need any more gap between the public policy and policy administration, which we do have. So I think it's now you know, I was thinking about this a lot because in Ukraine we did a public administration reform, and I feel that this thing that European Union kind of was showing us as a good example is kind of outdated already. And the whole world should think about what the government should work and look like in digital era. So definitely we should break out this gap between the policy formulation and operation, because those who formulate policy, they have to have this rapid feedback to improve their policy and plans. Public infrastructure, we build it and make it open. Let me bring example with highways. Highways was like pure military project, but the genius idea about this was opening up to the society, and now many things come up with this, like cars, it's standardized, but you can use it for any purpose. We were joking in the class, you can rob a bank and use a highway. It's not like, it's very open system, yes. And the same that government is building in digital public infrastructure, it's kind of a similar to highway. It will enable many things and many innovation, and we have to be very cautious about this, that we not fall in the state surveillance scenario, because government is building enormous capabilities now in the process, in the very beginning. So we have to be cautious about this, how to stay democratic digital country where there's many capabilities coming in.
Yeah, I mean, we just have to think of China and, a very, developed, digitally developed society, but with a lot of government, intelligence about its own citizens. Michael, I didn't want to leave you out of the conversation. Do you have another question?
Well, I did actually. I was trying to signal you before.
Oh, sorry.
So that's all right. That's all right. It's perfect time actually, because it follows exactly on what you were saying about the role of government, Gulsanna, because on the one hand, Brussels is not known for its nimble speed, right? And so there was a lot of dissatisfaction over the years, including with, in Britain with Brexit over bureaucracy in Brussels. And then in Russia, they have plenty of talent for innovation, but there's a famous book by the dean of historians of Russian science and technology, Lauren Graham, about innovation. And it's the state that often stifles innovation there, either by not providing support or by trying to, take resources away from new businesses and so forth. So my question is actually about the role of the Ministry for Technological Innovation and the actual structure and functioning of governance. Like, what can you say about the actual governmental structures and how they are working to kind of do all the things that you've been talking about in a different way?
Yeah, so now we try to think about innovation very strategically, how to incentivize, for example, a market around military tech, about biotech, and actually you take any sphere and add tech, and it's a sphere of innovation. And it's a lot. We did a kind of deep, I think, research. It's a lot of lying in the things like investment, government investing in research and development, in intellectual property protection and enforcement, which now there is a problem that have to be fixed in Ukraine, and in international cooperation. So in my view, these three ingredients kind of lack in Russia, and I don't believe that in the state control, in authoritarian state, you can enable true and meaningful innovation, because the government is controlling everything, and government cannot do innovation better than business. So the system is very different from here in US. In US, I think what we can speak about, it's really what US did really great. It's in creating an ecosystem where people can innovate. Yes, there is enough investment. The government is supporting. It's mostly coming from military, but it is coming. And intellectual protection is that business is confident in. Yeah, so when you invest, you understand that you're protected. The system is working well, the core judicial system, which is not really case in Russia. So I'm not sure, I'm not really, able to say that I have a deep knowledge about this, but at the extent we understand, we learn Russia and see what's happening in the military tech. So honestly, what is happening, it's a lot of kind of spying in innovation and technology, but not innovating itself, because there is no right conditions for this. And this is our chance to make a breakthrough. In Ukraine, the only way to win this war, we cannot compete with Russia in human power. We cannot, they're stronger economically. They bigger, they can send much more people and to the war. They don't care, honestly, about the life of their human power and human capital. But Ukraine is not in this position. We have to be smarter, and being smarter meaning that using technology and innovation, both in military sense and also economically. So we really have strong incentives to create a proper atmosphere and support Ukrainian business, startups, and research in doing so. If I'm answering your question, it's kind of a little.
Yeah. I always like to find out why people do things. And so I was interested, why did you come to the McCourt School? What's the focus of your research and where do you want to go from here?
It's mostly more existential question for me. From personal perspective, I'm in very, the war affected every Ukrainian different way. My family is in occupied territory. I'm Crimean, and I was 3 months pregnant when the war started. My husband was in the eastern of Ukraine. So there was a lot of things, and I stayed all this time, and I feel there's a big gap between what is happening in Ukraine and what the international community see us. Sometimes it's very hard to see that Ukraine is perceived like a post-Soviet Union country, the territory of the Russian interest and influence, which is absolutely not. Ukraine is so different and so, I would say, stable, developed European democratic mentality that I wanted to, and this opportunity comes to have a fellowship very unplanned, but I'm so grateful for McCourt to inviting and giving me this opportunity. So I decided I wanted to test how I can maybe better tell the story about Ukraine, how I can think to enhance and strengthen cooperation with other, not even only Western countries, but other emerging markets, that they can see Ukraine as a partner, and we can share, because digital transformation, if from the point of the international development, is a very great chance to make a leap. Yes, so as you told, there was the technology is changing every decade, and you have to just jump into the newest technology and build a very massive thing at scale nationwide that will transform many things. So it's a huge opportunity for emerging markets, and we can see that emerging markets doing a great progress in this, better than developed and regulated markets with a legacy infrastructure. So we do have a track in testing our assumptions, whether this story, how Ukraine is digitally transforming, and sharing this not only expertise, but the solutions itself can help Ukraine and other countries, to make a shift and better in building democracy and protecting democracy, but also to build more stronger soft power of Ukraine, because we understand it's already almost second anniversary of the full-scale invasion, 10 years of the occupation of my homeland, Crimea, and where is the exit out of this? The exit should be somewhere in a positive story, in a strong story. So I'm here for a year for the fellowship, and then I'm trying now we have a cooperation with USAID to help other countries to leverage on what Ukrainian have built and reuse it, maybe build the system or other technical solutions that we have, and see where that will lead us. I also think a lot about digital sovereignty and geopolitics of technology. Ukraine, from one point, is a perfect test ground with many companies, and especially in military tech, want to cooperate. If you go to the conference in defense tech, nobody will look at the product if it's not tested in Ukraine. So Ukraine have a really kind of important role in this now, but also we understand that we are leveraging on the big tech and not on the Western industry so much. And very well brought by you, Jill, the question that the case with Elon Musk make us think about, and whole world, I think in the US as well, there was just what just happened. So yeah, we have to think about the geopolitics of technology, how it's changing the power between the countries, nations, and actually changing powers between countries and industries.
Yeah. Well, really fascinating discussion, Gulsanna. Thank you so much. Again, our guest was Gulsanna Mamediieva, and she's here at Georgetown at the McCourt School. Really, I'm going to follow your work. It was a really interesting discussion on so many different levels. Michael, thank you very much for
Yes.
excellent questions as usual.
Well, thank you, Gulsanna. It was very nice to hear what you had to say. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, thank you to CERES, the Center for Eurasian, Russian, and East European Studies at Georgetown. And as always, thank you to the Carnegie Corporation of New York for its generous support of our programming. And we will see you next time with another subject for our Russia Brief. Thanks.